Ahí están jaloneándose. En un instante, uno desarma al otro y vea, le apunta y le dispara. Ahí lo mató.
In a shocking act of vigilante justice, a man wastes no time in retaliating against the contract killer who murdered his wife in broad daylight. Standing as a lone beacon of law enforcement, a small-town sheriff courageously takes on an organized crime syndicate, facing insurmountable odds. A ruthless drug lord at the pinnacle of his criminal empire is sent a gruesome package containing irrefutable evidence of his wife's brutal murder, a chilling message delivered with terrifying implications. The horrific discovery of his wife's dismembered body ignites a bloody and devastating war between rival drug cartels, escalating the violence to unprecedented levels. In 3 separate incidents, fueled by grief and rage, boyfriends embark on missions of vengeance to avenge the brutal slayings of their girlfriends.
Un hombre fue detenido este jueves porque mató al asesino de su esposa. Esto sucedió en calles de la colonia Morelos.
In a shocking incident that unfolded on September 28, 2023, in Morelos, Mexico. Specifically within the notoriously dangerous Tepito neighborhood, a brazen attack took place. Seemingly out of nowhere, a suspected assassin emerged, and in broad daylight, executed a woman in the middle of a public street. Immediately following the incident, the city's Central Command and Control Center dispatched a swift emergency response, mobilizing multiple motorized police units to the scene. As the victim lay wounded on the pavement, first responders raced against the clock. Investigators were left grappling with a critical question. What could have motivated such a bold and public act of violence, especially with a complete disregard for potential witnesses? Preliminary investigative efforts revealed crucial information. The local police department successfully identified the deceased, an 18-year-old male, as Iguad Garcia Moreno, who was found lifeless at the scene. Authorities believe Moreno was a suspected contract killer with alleged ties to Los Tepitos, a newly emerged criminal enterprise currently vying for dominance and control within the volatile streets of Mexico City. Los Petios, also known as the Union Patillo, originated in the Mexican capital, specifically within the infamous and historically significant neighborhood bearing the same name, Tepito. This organization has rapidly evolved from its humble beginnings as a small-time criminal group into a formidable and fully operational cartel. This burgeoning mafia has not only seized control of substantial territory, it has now ascended to the apex of the criminal hierarchy, exerting a pervasive atmosphere of control and intimidation over the residents in the vicinity. Rewinding back to 2010, notorious drug kingpin Edgar Valdez Villarreal, also known as La Barbie, along with his associates, Francisco, known by the alias Pancho Cayagua, and Armando Hernandez Gomez, otherwise known as El Ostion, all former high-ranking members of the Beltran Leyva cartel, established a formidable new organization, the Peyote Union. This newly formed alliance incorporated elements of La Familia Michoacana, effectively consolidating several disparate criminal gangs operating within Mexico City under a single banner. The Tepito Union, as it came to be known, rapidly ascended to become one of the nation's most prominent and influential cartels, however distinguishing itself from other major Mexican cartels. The Tepito Union's operations were concentrated exclusively within urban environments. This inherent limitation restricted their freedom of movement, leading them to master the art of operating discreetly and evading detection. Employing sophisticated intelligence-gathering techniques and strategic maneuvering, they have successfully remained elusive, outmaneuvering law enforcement agencies. Their sophisticated tactics have allowed them to evade not only the police and other authorities, but also the extensive network of over 20,000 surveillance cameras monitoring Mexico City. Intelligence suggests that the Peyote Union's sphere of influence extends beyond the capital, reaching into other central states within the country, extending their influence across Mexican states like Querétaro, Hidalgo, Altamira, Puebla, and Veracruz, establishing a formidable presence. Historically, they have forged alliances with prominent criminal organizations, including La Familia Michoacana and the Sinaloa Cartel. And more recently, they have aligned themselves with the Jalisco Nueva Generacion Cartel, CJNG, a dominant force in the region. This strategic partnership is crucial because they lack the independent capability to produce or import narcotics on a large scale, relying on established networks. The origins of the Tepito Union can be traced back to its recruitment efforts, targeting families residing in one of the world's most notorious neighborhoods, specifically the Morelos colony, known for its challenging socioeconomic conditions and widespread poverty. From its inception, the group has engaged in a diverse range of criminal activities, establishing a complex criminal enterprise. Their operations encompass the illicit trafficking of firearms, fueling violence and instability, as well as sophisticated money laundering schemes, drug trafficking operations, the production and distribution of counterfeit goods, extortion rackets, and kidnapping for ransom. Among the vulnerable populations targeted by the organization's recruiters are women from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, who are often lured into the criminal underworld due to limited opportunities and financial hardship. As a direct consequence of this recruitment strategy, the Tepito Union stands out as the only cartel known to have operational units, composed entirely of women, a unique characteristic within the criminal landscape. This brings us back to the tragic case of the murdered woman, connecting the broader narrative to a specific instance of violence. The victim, officially identified as Veronica Alejandra Malpica, becomes a focal point in the investigation. The 39-year-old victim, reportedly linked to one of these exclusively female criminal enterprises, was navigating the bustling streets of the downtown district when an unknown assailant fatally shot her. These clandestine female-operated cells within La Union Tepito engage in a diverse array of illicit activities, each meticulously orchestrated, and serving as a crucial component of the organization's complex operational framework. These illicit activities include the systematic extortion of local businesses through protection rackets, often resorting to intimidation tactics and acts of violence to guarantee compliance and payment. Furthermore, they engage in the surreptitious distribution of narcotics throughout the city streets, managing prostitution and escort services, and tragically engaging in the heinous crime of human trafficking for both sexual and labor exploitation. Although less frequently reported, these women also participate in sophisticated money laundering schemes, orchestrating kidnappings and carrying out homicides. These violent acts often stem from territorial disputes or serve as a brutal means of settling outstanding debts. Mere meters away, her husband witnessed the entire horrifying ordeal and immediately sprang into action, resolved to confront the individual responsible for his wife's murder. Following a brief but intense struggle, he successfully disarmed and ultimately killed the suspected hitman. In the immediate aftermath of the deadly confrontation, Ivan Daniel hastily fled the crime scene. Responding swiftly to the incident, agents from the Secretariat of Citizen Security, law enforcement personnel from various precincts across the downtown metropolitan area quickly converged on the scene and initiated a comprehensive search for the individuals involved in the altercation. They launched a wide-scale search operation, apprehending the suspect just minutes later in a remarkable display of efficiency. Adding another layer of complexity to the situation, several women arrived at the scene, each accompanied by children. This already chaotic and emotionally charged crime scene now bore witness to two distinct groups of mourners, each grappling with their own grief. On one side, a woman wept openly for the deceased hitman, while on the other, witnesses pleaded with authorities, attempting to intervene on behalf of the grieving husband who had taken matters into his own hands. At this juncture, we can only offer conjecture regarding the precise motivations that fueled this brutal act of violence. One possible scenario is that the woman may have committed an offense against members of the Los Tebidos gang, leading them to seek retribution for the perceived transgression. Notwithstanding the perpetrator's documented criminal history, associations, and the corroborating statements provided by multiple eyewitnesses, the prosecution in the nation's capital formally charged Ivan Daniel Elsas with qualified homicide. Local residents and business owners in the vicinity, who were acquainted with both the deceased woman and her husband, made a formal request to the Attorney General's office, leveraging local media outlets to amplify their message, urging a thorough examination of surveillance footage captured by cameras in the area. They contend that a grave injustice is being perpetrated against Ivan, given that he acted in self-defense and was demonstrably at a disadvantage, as his adversary was armed while he was unarmed, highlighting a clear disparity in force. His response was instinctive. Upon arriving at the scene, he pursued the perpetrator who had just committed a heinous act, fatally shooting his wife. Preliminary reports suggest the motive for the murder was the victim's alleged refusal to pay extortion money, or a so-called protection fee, according to eyewitness accounts obtained at the scene. However, the responsibility of thoroughly investigating this complex case now rests with the prosecutor's office, where legal professionals will meticulously examine the evidence and determine the legal standing of the individual who engaged in a physical altercation with and ultimately caused the death of his wife's killer.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the gentleman whose life is the subject of the movie Walking Tall, Buford Pusser.
Buford Pusser, a Tennessee-born sheriff who transitioned into a vigilante role, allegedly abandoned his official duties and operated outside the law after his wife tragically lost her life in a highway shooting orchestrated by members of a southern criminal syndicate. Driven by an insatiable thirst for retribution, he resolved to personally pursue justice. His compelling story served as the inspiration for numerous film adaptations, notably including a remake of the action-packed cinematic masterpiece Walking Tall, featuring the electrifying performance of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. During the tumultuous decades of the 1930s and 1940s, as the United States entered the twilight years of the Prohibition era, a period marked by the nationwide ban on alcoholic beverages, the border regions encompassing rural Mississippi and Tennessee became hotbeds of illicit activities and rampant lawlessness. A deeply entrenched criminal organization known as the State Line Mob exerted its influence over a vast network of illegal enterprises, ranging from the illicit trafficking of liquor and the operation of clandestine gambling dens to the exploitation of prostitution and the commission of cold-blooded murder. However, this unchecked reign of terror encountered a formidable adversary in the form of Buford Pusser, who emerged as a beacon of hope. Pusser was a man of unwavering commitment, who devoted a significant portion of his life to serving the public good. Prior to embarking on his career in law enforcement as a police officer, he honorably served his country as a member of the United States Marine Corps, until his service was cut short due to a medical discharge related to his asthma condition. Following his military career, he embarked on a relatively short but successful stint as a professional wrestler in the vibrant city of Chicago, where he quickly garnered the attention of fans and earned the memorable moniker Buford the Bull. This nickname was a direct reference to his imposing physical presence, characterized by his towering height and formidable build. The year 1959 marked a significant milestone in his personal life as he exchanged vows with his sweetheart, Pauline, a woman he had first encountered in the bustling metropolis of Chicago 2 years prior. Subsequently, the newly married couple relocated to Pusser's childhood home in McNairy County, Tennessee, where he wasted no time in establishing himself within the local law enforcement community. His dedication and commitment to upholding the law led to his election as both chief of police and constable in 1964, a remarkable achievement considering his young age of just 27. This accomplishment solidified his place in Tennessee history as the youngest individual ever to hold the esteemed position of county sheriff. His election also marked the beginning of his relentless and solitary crusade against the pervasive influence of organized crime. Upon assuming the mantle of town sheriff, Pusser launched a fearless campaign targeting the illicit activities of the mafia, concentrating his efforts along the volatile state border separating Tennessee and Mississippi. This region was notorious for being under the iron grip of two formidable criminal organizations, the Dixie Mafia and the State Line Mob. His unwavering crackdown on trafficking operations, coupled with his incorruptible nature and refusal to accept bribes, quickly made him the top target of the Mafia's wrath. The Mafia wasted no time in placing a substantial bounty on his head, and by 1967, Pusser had miraculously survived a series of assassination attempts, solidifying his reputation as a formidable adversary, eliminating a number of contract killers. And also a woman identified as Louise Hathcock, who was known to have deep connections to organized crime figures in the area. According to reports, Hathcock had initiated an ambush against Pusser and his deputy, P.D. Plunk, while they were on official duty, responding to a robbery investigation at a lodging establishment in the vicinity.
Does the fact that you had to take these two human lives ever haunt you?
Yes, of course. I've seen Miss Hathcott 1,000 times, I guess.
In a subsequent interview, Plunk vividly recounted the harrowing incident, providing a first-hand account of the events that unfolded. At this juncture, the man in question had risen to the status of a local hero, garnering widespread admiration and respect from the community. However, he simultaneously became the primary target of the region's criminal underworld, facing constant threats to his safety. On the fateful date of August 12, 1967, a pivotal moment in this ongoing saga occurred. Pusher's luck ran out when his wife, Pauline, made the fateful decision to accompany him on an investigation into a reported roadside disturbance, unknowingly placing herself in harm's way. The incident took place in close proximity to the town's Methodist church, a location that would forever be etched in the annals of local history. Suddenly, a vehicle pulled up alongside their own, signaling the imminent danger. Without warning, the occupants of the vehicle opened fire with a .30 caliber carbine rifle, unleashing a barrage of bullets. Pusser sustained severe injuries in the attack, absorbing 3 bullets to the face that left him permanently disfigured, but miraculously alive, clinging to life by a thread. Tragically, his wife Pauline was instantly killed in the hail of gunfire, succumbing to her injuries on the spot. The sheriff subsequently underwent a series of extensive surgical procedures, including multiple skin grafts, in a painstaking effort to reconstruct his shattered face. In the wake of the near-fatal assassination attempt, still grappling with the profound weight of guilt and grief, and left to single-handedly raise his devastated daughter amidst the emotional turmoil, Pusser redoubled his efforts in combating crime, embarking on a relentless crusade. Driven by an unwavering determination to secure justice for Pauline, his slain wife, Buford publicly identified 4 individuals as the perpetrators of the heinous act, among them Kirsky McCord, bringing the weight of public scrutiny upon them. Identified as a lower-ranking leader within the Dixie Mafia, Nix was widely suspected of orchestrating the assassination of his wife, although Nix was never formally convicted in connection with Pauline's death, a tragedy that shocked the community. He ultimately received a life sentence in an unrelated criminal case, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his days behind bars. This separate case involved his ordering the murder of a sitting Mississippi Circuit Court judge, a brazen act that demonstrated his disregard for the law. Regarding the remaining individuals implicated in Pauline's brutal slaying, their fates remain shrouded in mystery, as they each met untimely ends, under suspicious circumstances, dying one after another. Allegations arose that Pusser himself actively pursued and eliminated those responsible for the heinous attack on his family. On Christmas Day in 1968, Buford fatally shot Charles Russell Hamilton, adding another chapter to the saga of violence. Hamilton was confirmed as one of the individuals involved in his wife's tragic murder, a fact that fueled Pusser's quest for retribution. Other known associates of the gang, including the notorious Carl Towhead White, met similarly violent ends. Some were gunned down in the state of Tennessee, their lives cut short by a hail of bullets. Others were discovered lifeless in Texas, riddled with multiple gunshot wounds, painting a grim picture of the escalating violence. Unsubstantiated rumors circulated throughout the region, suggesting Pusser was the architect of these targeted killings, eliminating mafia members one by one, in a relentless pursuit of vengeance for the loss of his beloved wife. However, due to the absence of concrete evidence directly implicating him in these deaths, the truth remained elusive. And perhaps because his alleged actions were tacitly condoned by members of the local community who shared his thirst for justice, he was never formally charged. Remarkably, Pusser faced no legal repercussions for his actions. The community rallied behind him, unwilling to prosecute the man they considered a local hero for seeking retribution for the tragic murder of his wife. In 1972, Buford launched another campaign for sheriff, seeking to regain his position, but ultimately fell short, losing the election to Clifford Coleman. On August 21st, 1974, following a meeting with a film production company to discuss the possibility of reprising his role in a sequel to the blockbuster hit Walking Tall, a movie inspired by the extraordinary events of his own life, Buford was operating his Corvette at a high rate of speed, exceeding the posted limit, when he tragically lost control of the vehicle and collided with an embankment situated near his residence. His daughter, a witness to the horrific accident, discovered Buford ejected from the wreckage of the Corvette, clinging to life but succumbing to his injuries at the scene of the crash at the the young age of 36. However, persistent rumors circulated suggesting that Buford's vehicle had been tampered with by individuals connected to organized crime. State Trooper Paul Irvin, in his official capacity, concluded that the fatal accident was attributed to Buford operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol and traveling at an unsafe and excessive speed. Eugene Buford Putzer, the courageous law enforcement officer who valiantly challenged corruption and stood for justice, had met an untimely end. Buford Putzer was laid to rest beside his wife Pauline in Adamsville Cemetery, a seemingly peaceful conclusion to a turbulent life. However, lingering suspicions clouded the narrative, as his family harbored the belief that his fatal car accident in '74 was not accidental but rather a premeditated and meticulously planned act. Despite these strong suspicions, concrete evidence remained elusive and no charges were ever filed. While many in Tennessee lauded Buford Putzer's courageous actions and celebrated him as a hero, a publisher named Barbara Bivin emerged, casting a shadow of doubt on the established narrative. Bivin boldly presented the public with a more sinister interpretation of events, suggesting hidden motives and darker possibilities lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly straightforward story. To substantiate her claims, she cited previously undisclosed FBI reports, bringing to light new information that implicated Buford Putzer in illicit activities, raising serious questions about his character and past actions. Furthermore, Bivin alleged that one of the individuals responsible for Pauline Putzer's tragic death had entered into a secret agreement with the local sheriff, potentially obstructing justice. Bivin's accusations went further, implicating Putzer in serious criminal offenses, including involvement in human trafficking and the illegal drug trade, painting a picture of widespread corruption. She also leveled a shocking accusation against Putzer, claiming he murdered Louise Hathcock in cold blood, alleging that Hathcock was shot in the back, contradicting the official account of the incident. This directly challenged the narrative that Hathcock was involved in an assassination attempt against Putzer. In an even more astonishing turn of events, Bivin went so far as to accuse Putzer of shooting his own wife, Pauline, and subsequently attempting to conceal his crime by inflicting a gunshot wound upon himself to fabricate a story of self-defense. The gravity of the allegations left many members of the community in a state of utter disbelief and shock. Prior to these accusations, Expositor had consistently been viewed as a local hero, a pillar of the community. Agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation launched a thorough investigation into the claims, but their exhaustive efforts failed to uncover any substantial evidence to corroborate Bibb's accusations. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, her claims continue to ignite heated controversy and fuel public discourse. The ongoing debate revolves around the true nature and character of the now-deceased Buford Putzer, raising questions about his past actions. Buford Putzer's daughter, Dwana, has stepped forward, vehemently denying any involvement of her father in the alleged illicit activities. She further highlighted the perceived absurdity and lack of credibility in Vivian's claims, publicly characterizing Vivian as an opportunistic individual seeking financial gain. Dwana asserts that Vivian is attempting to capitalize on her father's story for personal profit, portraying her as someone eager to make a quick buck.
Well, this morning we have new developments in a decades-old cold case into the killing of the wife of former legendary McNairy County Sheriff Buford Putzer.
In a development that stunned many, in the year 2024, nearly 5 decades after her untimely and tragic demise, the remains of Pauline Pickens were exhumed by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, in a move that sent shockwaves through the community. This extraordinary action was taken in a renewed effort to reopen and shed light on the long-dormant case. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had received credible information suggesting that a crucial autopsy had never been conducted on Pauline's body, raising serious questions about the initial investigation. Therefore, it is entirely possible that the final chapter in this perplexing and haunting case has yet to be written, leaving room for further investigation and potential revelations.
But I do believe we should have truth and justice. And so if there is someone that hasn't paid a price for doing that, then justice should be paid.
Primer caso de una mujer y sus hijos asesinados de una forma brutal entre los principales líderes del narcotráfico.
In the year 1989, a man received a mysterious package, the contents of which would forever alter the course of his life. The package's contents proved to be profoundly disturbing. unleashing a nightmare beyond comprehension. A gruesome discovery of a body part confirmed the horrifying truth. His wife had been brutally murdered. As if this devastating tragedy were not enough, the torment continued. He received yet another package, this time containing a videotape, a harbinger of further horrors to come. A couple of weeks later, gripped by unimaginable dread and terror, the man was forced to witness the paralyzing footage of his 2 children's brutal execution. The children were tragically executed in a foreign land, far from the safety of their home. This man, subjected to unimaginable suffering, was 30-year-old Hector Palma Salazar, also known as El Güero Palma, a notorious figure and one of the founding members of the infamous Sinaloa cartel. Palma's origins trace back to the small, marginalized community of La Noria de Arriba, located within the municipality of Mocorito in the state of Sinaloa, situated in northwestern Mexico. Sinaloa, a region known for its complex socio-political landscape, lies in the northwestern part of Mexico. The exact date of his birth remains shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. Some sources place his birth in the mid-1950s, while others contend that he was born in the 1960s, adding to the enigma surrounding his early life. He hailed from a family burdened by poverty and only managed to complete primary education, facing significant challenges in his formative years. During his teenage years, he became involved in car theft, a path that would lead him down a dangerous road. His activities in car theft eventually attracted the attention of the powerful drug lord Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known by the ominous moniker El Padrino, or the Godfather, a figure of immense influence in the criminal underworld. Gallardo also held the formidable title of El Jefe de Jefes, the boss of bosses, solidifying his position at the apex of the drug trade. The undisputed kingpin, the individual who controlled the lion's share of the cocaine and marijuana trade in Mexico at that point in history. Initially, Felix brought Palma into the fold as an enforcer, a hired gun. And then, as time progressed, he gradually entrusted Palma with overseeing the complex cocaine trafficking operations that ran through the Sonora region. As this individual steadily climbed the ranks within the organization, the Drug Enforcement Administration, in their initial assessment, designated this criminal enterprise as the Guadalajara Cartel, another major player in the narcotics trade. The notorious El Chapo also plied his trade within this group. Furthermore, he cultivated a close personal and professional relationship with Palma. Their meteoric rise within the cartel hierarchy, however, did not sit well with certain other members of the organization, generating friction and resentment. This discontent was particularly evident among the Arellano Felix brothers, Benjamin and Ramon, who happened to be related to the aforementioned kingpin, further complicating the internal dynamics. Despite this internal strife, Felix Gallardo maintained a positive view of these ambitious young drug traffickers. When the time is right to finally launch your operation in Palma, when you've made all the necessary preparations and are ready to commence, consider those initial steps as a foundational phase, strategically positioned within the square and cart. The simulation depicts the assassination of Enrique Camarena, known as El Kiki. The dynamics of power within the cartel underworld were dramatically altered by the actions of an undercover DEA operative. United States law enforcement officials asserted that Felix Gallardo, in conjunction with Rafael Caro Quintero and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, orchestrated and executed the assassination of a DEA agent. As a direct consequence of their alleged involvement, the trio was methodically apprehended and detained, ultimately leading to the fragmentation of the Guadalajara cartel and a subsequent restructuring of established drug trafficking routes. However, the arrest served as a catalyst, igniting a fierce conflict between a newly formed alliance, comprised of El Gato and El Chapo, pitted against the formidable Arellano Felix brothers. Frequent and intense shootouts, along with large-scale massacres and even strategically placed bombings, became hallmarks of the escalating violence that plagued northern Mexico. Amidst this turbulent period of conflict, El Grito Palma allegedly withheld a substantial drug shipment from Felix Gallardo, an act that prompted Gallardo to accuse him of treachery and betrayal. Gallardo's subsequent act of retribution would become an infamous chapter in Palma's life, forever etched in the annals of cartel history. The drug lord sought to inflict pain on Palma in the most personal way imaginable, aiming to deliver a devastating blow and impart a lesson that would never be forgotten. His meticulously crafted plan commenced with the recruitment of a physically attractive Venezuelan drug trafficker. Identified as Rafael Clavel Moreno, orchestrated a plan to engage in an extramarital affair with Palma's wife, Guadalupe Lea Serrano, employing manipulative tactics to the extent that he successfully persuaded her to abandon her marriage and relocate their 2 children, Jesus and Natalie, across international borders to the United States.
Fue Rafael Clavel Moreno, de origen venezolano, que por órdenes de los Arellano Félix se infiltró y se acercó poco a poco a su esposa, Guadalupe Lejía, hasta convertirse en su amante.
In a brazen act of coercion in San Francisco, Clavel compelled Guadalupe to withdraw a staggering $2 million from a shared bank account, an account she held jointly with her husband. Once Guadalupe had outlived her usefulness to the kidnapper, having served her purpose, she was tragically executed. Recall the unsettling package we discussed earlier? Days later, in a gruesome development, just days later in a chilling turn of events, Palma received Guadalupe's severed head, delivered in a refrigerated metal container, a truly horrific discovery. But the hired killer's gruesome assignment was far from over. It extended beyond this appalling act. The Godfather, the mastermind behind this operation, had sanctioned the annihilation of an entire family in a horrifying act of retribution fueled by a thirst for vengeance. A mere 2 weeks following Guadalupe's brutal murder, Clavel abducted the drug lord's children and transported them to Venezuela. Upon arrival, he heartlessly threw both children from a bridge with a staggering height of 165 feet, known as Puente de la Concordia, a structure now stained with this unspeakable tragedy. This horrific act took place in San Cristobal, approximately 65 miles from the Colombian border, a location now forever marked by this heinous crime. He documented this cold-blooded infanticide, capturing the heinous act on video, and then sent the recording to Palma. As is often the practice among drug lords, a chilling display of power and brutality, Palma Salazar commissioned the construction of an extravagant $420,000 mausoleum for his family, a lavish final resting place. This opulent structure is located in the Advenez de Maya Cemetery in Uyacan, Sinaloa, a site now synonymous with the excesses and violence of the drug trade. Inside the mausoleum, poignant portraits of his deceased wife and children, depicting them surrounded by celestial angels, serve as a heartbreaking testament to their loss and adorn the walls of their final resting place. Authorities quickly identified 2 primary individuals suspected of orchestrating the savage assault on the Palma family. The initial suspect was Gallardo, who investigators believed may have harbored a deep-seated desire for retribution after Salazar allegedly confiscated a portion of his illicit goods, preventing their intended delivery. These goods were reportedly meant to be clandestinely transported across the border into the United States. The second set of suspects, due to the long-standing and intensely bitter nature of their ongoing feud with the Palma family, were the Arellano Felix brothers, notorious figures in the region. En todo el juego. This phrase seems to be misspelled or a regionalism. It's difficult to translate directly without more context. It could possibly mean in the whole region or similar.
En todo el juego, incluido el honor del Güero Palma, un viejo conocido del cártel de Guadalajara, el Mayo Zambada, se acercó a los de Sinaloa para planear una venganza en contra de los Arellano Félix.
El Guerchio's retaliation was swift and merciless. He initiated his campaign of violence by ordering the executions of 9 individuals connected to Gallardo, including Gallardo's mother-in-law and other close associates and family members. Some of the victims' bodies bore the gruesome evidence of extensive trauma, exhibiting numerous broken bones and deep lacerations. Palma's quest for vengeance expanded in both scope and intensity, becoming increasingly more audacious. With the crucial assistance of his longtime partner and confidant, the notorious drug lord El Chapo Guzman, Palma orchestrated the murders of individuals implicated in the initial massacre. The victims of this retaliatory wave included not only those directly involved, but also their friends and family members. Among the first casualties of this escalating conflict was Clavel Moreno. Palma Salazar, despite being incarcerated, masterminded the assassination from within the confines of prison walls. Venezuelan authorities apprehended the hired killer responsible for Moreno's death. He was subsequently incarcerated for the murders of 2 underage victims. Under suspicious circumstances, the hitman met a violent end within the prison where he was serving his sentence. The individual responsible for his death remains at large to this day. In a further escalation of the violence, Clavel Moreno's 3 children were subsequently killed in separate incidents. Furthermore, a group of Venezuelan nationals who had connections to the hitman in Mexico also perished in a series of violent encounters.
Tenían la intención de acabar de una vez por todas con toda la cúpula del cártel rival. Todo esto se pudo lograr gracias a la información privilegiada que les brindó el Mayo Zambada.
However, this bitter feud was far from over. In 1992, a grim discovery was made. 9 men, among them attorneys and a half-brother of the notorious drug lord, the head of the cartel, were discovered on a highway in Iguala, victims of a brutal attack, riddled with bullets and bearing unmistakable signs of torture. This horrific scene unfolded in the state of Guerrero, Mexico, a region known for its volatile drug trade. This shocking massacre was widely attributed to the combined forces of El Chapo Guzman and the notorious Arellano Felix cartel hitmen, who, in a calculated move, had extended an invitation to the Arroyo Felix brothers to attend a meeting, ostensibly to negotiate a truce and finally put an end to their long-standing and bloody conflict. The Tijuana-based brothers, unaware that Ramon Arellano Felix, also known as El Gato, was already deeply enraged and fueled by vengeance due to the horrific murders of his wife and children, accepted the invitation to the meeting. More than 50 heavily armed assassins, equipped with an arsenal of high-powered weaponry, unleashed a hail of gunfire, expending over 1,000 rounds of ammunition on those gathered inside. Christine's disco. Miraculously, every single member of the Arellano Felix family managed to escape the carnage with their lives, seeking refuge in bathroom stalls and crawling through the building's narrow ventilation ducts to evade the attackers.
Con todo en juego, incluido el honor del Güero Palma, un viejo conocido del cártel de Guadalajara, el Mayo Zambada, se acercó a los de Sinaloa para planear una venganza en contra de los Arellano Félix.
Reinaldo Zambrada, also known as El Rey, a prominent figure in the Mexican drug trade, identified as one of the 4 key leaders within the infamous Sinaloa cartel, would later provide critical testimony during the high-profile U.S. trial of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, alleging that his own brother, Ismael El Mayo Zambrada, a figure who remains elusive to law enforcement, played a significant role in orchestrating the violent shootout that took place inside Christine's nightclub, located in the popular tourist destination of Puerto Vallarta on the night of November 8, 1992. This brazen attack occurred during a birthday celebration for Benjamin Arroyo Felix, a member of the rival Tijuana cartel, where an armed commando unit, in a meticulously planned operation, made an unsuccessful attempt to assassinate the Arroyo Felix brothers, leaders of the Tijuana cartel. This violent incident was widely believed to be an act of retaliation, extending El Gato Felix Gallardo's ongoing quest for revenge. Tragically, the attack resulted in the deaths of 10 additional individuals, including several innocent bystanders who were simply enjoying a night out. The bloody feud between the Arellano Felix brothers and the forces aligned with Chapo Guzman continued to escalate, persisting until the eventual demise of Ramon Arellano Felix, followed by the apprehension and arrest of Benjamin Arellano Felix. These events culminated in a significant, albeit partial, victory for the Sinaloa cartel, who, under the leadership of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a master strategist, along with the influential figure of Juan Jose Esparragoza Moreno, known as El Azul, formally established the Sinaloa cartel as a dominant force in the drug world, an organization whose notoriety continues to this day. The Sinaloa cartel stands as one of the most formidable and influential criminal syndicates on a global scale. Now, one undeniable truth has emerged from this conflict: the long-held underworld principle of safeguarding the lives of family members and close associates of high-ranking cartel figures and drug kingpins has been irrevocably shattered in this ongoing war, leaving no hope for repair. The horrific acts of violence committed in this cycle of retaliatory attacks would persist relentlessly over the ensuing years, leaving a trail of devastation. Even after Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo's 3-decade incarceration, the violence continued unabated. In a more recent development in February of 2020, the lifeless bodies of Maria Jimena Palma Parra, aged 32, and Cynthia Parra Verdugo, aged 52, were discovered in a desolate area near Obregón, Sonora, Mexico. Authorities later confirmed the identities of the deceased women as Gallardo's niece and sister-in-law, respectively. Should the former drug lord ever be granted release and return to society, he would undoubtedly be confronted with unresolved matters and a multitude of adversaries seeking retribution.